Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our new show, Box Office Squad. I'm Christian Iversen, and I'm joined here by Joey DeAngelis and Brian Grodski. And so today, we're going to talk about the top 5 movies of this weekend, and then some couple others that just we couldn't forget about because they're doing great business, like the other indies. So the top 5 movies of this weekend are Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Number 2 was Sing. Number 3 was Passengers, starring Chris Pratt and a piece of garbage. Number 4, the new Bryan Cranston, Why Him? And number 5, Assassin's Creed. So one of them was existent from last weekend, and 4 others are brand new just for Christmas weekend. So let's talk about the number 1 for last weekend, Rogue One. So as we see, it made $64.377 million, having a 58.5% drop from its last weekend with $155 million. I would say this is an okay drop because normally when you have a movie making over like $150 million such, you should expect a pretty big drop. There are some instances where it's less, like Jurassic World had $100 million its second weekend, or like Avengers 1, or even Star Wars, The Force Awakens made like 150 in its second weekend. So like those are very rare instances where like second weekends will have less than a 50% drop. What are your guys' thoughts?
Going back to Force Awakens, this is only Rogue One's only the second December title to have an opening weekend with more than $100 million. So, and Force Awakens kind of skews that quite a bit because of its, the unprecedented nature of its release anyway. So trying to guess what Rogue One's weekend was going to be was kind of difficult, but we knew it was going to probably be number 1 anyway, but it had a big challenge with, like, as we said, there were so many new releases coming out on its second weekend that it was kind of made guessing this thing hard. But I definitely would say a 60% drop is pretty average for these kinds of movies. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, but we were talking about Force Awakens. That had a 39.8% drop, and I think you can't really compare much other films to Force Awakens. That was pretty much just a unique, pretty much once every few years film. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, because 39.8%, it's not that was Force Awakens. It's a reasonable drop, I'd say, for Rogue One, given how much it made its first weekend. I'm happy with it. I think it got what it deserved, and it'll continue throughout January to have decent drops and make its money, I'm sure.
Yeah, see, because The Force Awakens was an event film, and we rarely have these events. It took place 10 years after the last time we had a Star Wars film, 2005, 2015, and there's so much hype around it because we were going to see the return of Han Solo, Princess Leia, and all other characters, and even anticipate the hype for Luke Skywalker, and that was going to be huge. And then the word of mouth was great. It had like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. So like this is like once in a lifetime chance where like we're going to see this hype be this freaking huge. And with Rogue One, the reason why like it didn't make Force numbers, again, it's not an event film, and 2, this is not a sequel to The Force Awakens. Actually, we don't really know what characters we're watching except for like as part of Darth Vader. Like we don't know any of these characters, and most of these actors, not many people are too familiar with, unless if you count Felicity Jones, if you've seen her independent films, or even Forrest Whitaker. But like that's it. Most of these actors are like almost no names to all the people who rarely go see movies. No one's going to know Donnie Yen, or no one's going to know the guy who played Cassian, or no one's going to know the guy who played K2SO. Nobody even knows what K2SO is until they actually see Rogue One. So the fact that it made $155 million without really much recognition, that's a great opening weekend. And in 67 million, I think, whatever it was, 63, whatever it was, that's a pretty reasonable drop. And next weekend, it's still going to be number 1. My only question is it going to have another 50% drop, or will it be less? because nothing's coming out next weekend. The only thing I could see it really having competition is La La Land expanding more theaters, because La La Land is doing fantastic. And it's very limited release it has. So with that aside, number 2, Sing, with $35 million. Based off of a $75 million budget it has, I would say Sing was okay in this opening weekend. When you're going against a new Star Wars movie, and when you have like other movies like Passengers, Why Him, Assassin's Creed, all debuting in that weekend as well, I would say, again, Sing is an okay release. I know people are going to compare that to Despicable Me because it's made by the same company. Also, Secret Life of Pets. The main reason I could say Sing is not as huge as those two is because the Sing marketing campaign wasn't nearly as huge as Despicable Me, Minions, or even Secret Life of Pets. It felt like, Illumination didn't try nearly as hard for Sing because, they couldn't figure out a really good release date for Sing to be on its own. So they just put it as a Christmas release, just so, if any shows are sold out for Rogue One and you have some kids, you can just take it to Sing. It's a pretty reasonable movie to take your family to.
I'm sorry, go on.
And so on a $75 million budget, it's going to make its money. There's no issue with that. I'd say that's a pretty reasonable number. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think Universal's a little disappointed with this number, actually, because they released this movie more than a month after Moana, which was the last animated kids movie, wide release. And so they were thinking, okay, there's no more kids-oriented movies on this Christmas release date. We had Passengers, that was more teenage, adult audience. Why Him, obviously adult. And Assassin's Creed, some kids, but mostly teen and adult. So Sing was looking really at the kids and family audience, and I think I'm very surprised that it didn't do more than this, because I actually did think that the marketing was very heavy for this film. Every time I would go to the movies, I'd see the trailer for it, or at least an advertisement. And so $75 million, which is pretty cheap for an animated movie, I think just Universal was expecting a little more. It's Christmas weekend, so obviously as an animated film, the drops are much lower, so it will make up its money. But I think in terms of opening, it could have gotten a little more, and I think that's what Universal was hoping for.
Looking at Sing, I remember I just see advertising and trailers for this thing everywhere. But the first thing that I thought of when I thought of the premise for Sing was, man, they should have made this movie 5 or 10 years ago, when when American Idol was the hottest ticket, and the whole talent reality show thing was at its peak. They still have those talent shows now, and they still, people still watch them, but it's not nearly as relevant as it was, say, a few years ago. And I guess the other thing with this movie too is that it has a lot of big movie stars in its voice cast. I mean, you got Matthew McConaughey, Scarlett Johansson, just a lot of big name talent doing the voices and all that. And it's got a small budget, so this opening isn't too bad. But I guess, when you compare it to Minions or even Secret Life of Pets, it's not going to come out on top, obviously. But it's got good reviews going for it. I've heard mostly good, pretty good things about it. So it'll hold, I think, pretty decently as the weeks go on.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie myself, and I do remember the marketing advertisements, the posters. So I do take my word back about when I said that it wasn't much marketing. Yes, there was. That was my mistake. But yeah, the reviews are pretty okay, not bad. It's just okay, yeah, it's safe. Take your kids to it; they'll enjoy it. So yeah, that's Sing. Number 3 is Passengers, another one I didn't see, and the one I don't wish on seeing. Well, the other actress that's in it. I'm not a fan. Just for not a personal fan.
Mm-hmm.
But on a $110 million budget, it's made $14.85 million. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Now, there were pretty bad reviews. I think it's sitting at 30%. So that is a very, very disappointing score. Do you guys really think there's really any interest in it other than it's just Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence?
I personally, I saw the first trailer. The first trailer made out to be some kind of more sci-fi-esque mystery type of movie. But then as the marketing continued, I don't know if it was this next trailer or some TV spots started coming out. They started selling it as a romance, and not just a romance, but like this cheesy romance that I have no interest in seeing that. I think it would have been done much better if the marketing stuck with selling it just as this sci-fi movie, this mystery, and obviously they're advertising Jennifer Lawrence, Chris Pratt, huge names, and to only make with $14.8 million in its opening weekend with $110 million budget, stinks. Terrible. Sony is not in a good place right now in terms of its live action movies. I'm looking at a list right here. The last one before Passengers was Inferno. Inferno on
Oh God.
Whoa.
Yeah.
on a $75 million budget. It didn't do too bad. $219 worldwide box office. But before that, we had The Magnificent Seven, which did not do much better. Did not do well. And then before that, Ghostbusters, which lost a lot of money.
Sorry.
Sony is in a rough place. I think I see them getting desperate with like their marketing campaigns before release, and I think that's what hurt it pretty badly with this movie.
Okay, so thinking about Passengers and what you're saying about like advertising it as a romance, I think that if they had stuck to that angle, could have been a nice counter program against Star Wars. Because I was thinking back to the release of The Dark Knight, and what movie released the same weekend as The Dark Knight? Mamma Mia. And Mamma Mia made a ton of money. Like, if you look it up, I think it made at least like $500-600 million worldwide. Now, granted, Mamma Mia is a known musical and all that, sure. But also, it's a nice chance for ladies to say, okay, I don't need to see Star Wars. I'm going to see something else. And if Passengers maybe had more of that, could have worked. But again, Passengers had the really bad reviews. And just I never really got quite a handle on the type of movie that it was through the trailers. I mean, there was like some thrilling sci-fi elements and that, and then you got Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, but it just kind of felt like it was a movie. You know, it was a movie that was coming out, and looking at the other releases, like especially Sing and Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, I kind of expected this thing to flop, but the other thing is people look at this and they see Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. And I guess people are just tired of Jennifer Lawrence now too anyway. So,
yeah.
You know. And the other thing with Chris Pratt is that the big movies that he has been in were already like, I mean, again, Guardians of the Galaxy was kind of an unknown Marvel property for a while, but again, it was a Marvel movie, so people were going to see it.
Yeah, and ensemble really. Like it wasn't him as the star leader.
Him. Yeah.
But now, like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, now it's a huge movie, and now Chris Pratt is a star because Guardians of the Galaxy made him a star, and Jurassic World even made his star presence even bigger. So,
right.
So he's like one of the biggest name actors right now.
Definitely.
I have to say.
He's a big name, but this one, Passengers, was sort of it was a misfire, you know. But I think we should move on to the next one.
Yeah, because I don't like Jennifer Lawrence. So number 4 is a Bryan Cranston comedy. Why him? Made $11 million based off a $30 million budget. Let's say for a Christmas comedy, this isn't bad. This isn't too bad. The reviews are not very good, but that's expected with comedies these days, but they somehow still do well. I forget. Last year, there's another comedy that came out on Christmas Day. It was with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell.
That's Daddy's Home.
Daddy's Home, yeah. That was another one of those bad review movies, but it still did well. I guess people liked it because it was funny. And with comedies, as long as you laugh, I guess it's worth it, your ticket price. And Bryan Cranston, everyone knows who Bryan Cranston is. And James Franco, he's a comedic actor too. So I guess, $11 million off a $38 million budget, that's okay. It'll make us money back. It's not going to lose money. It'll have a profit. Any additional thoughts to that?
Yeah, when I first saw the trailer for Why Him, I saw it had Cranston, who I love as an actor. James Franco, I'm a big fan of as well, so I was looking forward to it. And then as the reviews start coming in, you start seeing that it's kind of this typical rated R comedy that's just okay, fine. And so I'm disappointed that it didn't get the best reviews or didn't do well. And at $11 million, it's okay. I think I believe it'll profit just a sum. And it just seems like another rated R comedy that is just kind of a throwaway at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how well it's going to do in the coming weeks because is it a very I forget if it's like a Christmas centric sort of.
Yeah, it does seem like that from what I got from the trailers and even from the marketing, like the posters. It does seem like a Christmas movie. I guess I could see it doing okay the next weekend and maybe in the third weekend, but once it gets to the fourth weekend,
because I was also thinking about Office Christmas Party that was released not too long ago, like a few weeks back, and that probably had a much better chance of making money because it was at least released around Christmas time, but it wasn't released directly in Christmas weekend. So it would have like at least a few weekends to milk out like the Christmas like money.
And it had slightly better reviews. Let me go on Rotten Tomatoes real quick. Okay, so not much better. It's like 43%, and Why Him has 41. Okay, right. So it's barely better.
Yeah.
But still, I guess Why Him is just okay. But you think Passengers bombed? No. Assassin's Creed is the biggest probably of the entire year. $10.2 million off of a $125 million budget. All I can think of is we're sick of these video game movies that just aren't good. We got that with Warcraft earlier this year, and evidently Assassin's Creed is worse. And I didn't think it could get worse than that. This is just a bomb. There's no other way we can get around saying any compliments towards it. It's not good. It's just not good. And like the reviews are just crap. It's like 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. My God. And you have like you have a good cast. Michael Fassbender, Marion Cotillard, Jeremy Irons. This should have been a good movie. Granted, I haven't seen it, nor do I have any interest in seeing it, because the marketing campaign just seemed like, well, hey, you remember the video games, right? Yeah, just see that, because you know the video games.
Okay, so I'm speaking as somebody who's I've not played the games, but I am somewhat familiar with them because my brother and some of my friends are huge fans of the games, and and I heard the premise. It's like, okay, so you have these people who like they experience like the memories of their ancestors or something by doing this like system thing, and that's the whole conceit of doing these crazy things that are like in like the 1700s. And I'm thinking to myself, then I hear like the movie actually takes like the part where it's set in the modern times as the main story, and I'm like, no.
Don't do that.
It's supposed to be like the assassin stuff in the 1700s. I don't want to see boring like science things and then have the B story be the exciting assassin stuff, which probably isn't great, but it's probably at least more entertaining than other nonsense. I don't
What were the screenwriters thinking when they did that? It's like, 30% action and 70% story. Like, okay, like, unless if you had a really, really good story, really, really, like, Oscar-worthy screenplay, then you can do that. But from what I'm hearing, it's just dog crap. So, at least just, if you're going to have, like, dog crap screenplay, at least have, like, most of it be action, so, like, we'll have fun. What are your thoughts on this, Brian?
It's funny. Well, I'm looking here. Fox put out 2 films this weekend. One was Why Him? The other was Assassin's Creed. I can imagine their mentality going, okay, we have one looking at the audience of, teenage, adult audience, maybe some family in there. The other looking at adult, and hopefully not too much intermingling, and hopefully both films could profit some. It ends up, the movie that cost $38 million ended up making more than the $125 million movie. That blows my mind that happened. I cannot imagine how disappointed Fox must be for having this.
I'm sure the bad reviews had to take some weight into this.
And we started seeing, I don't know, a week or so ago, I heard that the review embargo was pushed to like a day before release or something. That's a telling sign, I guess. They realized that what they produced wasn't the best. But, I mean, putting $125 million into this thing, that is a huge loss. And on your point, Christian, saying these video game movies bombing after bombing, I mean, Warcraft did do pretty well overseas.
Yeah.
But here domestically, it bombed.
Well,
yeah, Warcraft was lucky that they had China. China basically just saved them from
China and Russia were like, yeah.
Because, like, Warcraft officially made over, like, $400 million off of, like, a $130 million budget. So it actually made money. And, like, when you look at domestically, it made, like, $40-something million. So that is just embarrassing. And I don't know if Assassin's Creed is either going to make more than that.
This thing, it'll barely break its budget. And let alone all the marketing costs and intake from the movie theaters. It's total bomb.
Oh, it's gonna lose money. I feel like it will lose at least $100 million. It'll lose that much based off the marketing costs and anything promotional after that. But man, and here's the thing: like, the studios are not gonna stop making video game movies because, like, you see the success of comic book movies. They know that the success, like the amount of money the comic book movies are gonna be making, it's gonna die down at some point. So they want to start another trend, and they see that video game movies can be a trend if done right. And I know, like, one of these studios, they're thinking in their heads, this, like, the amount of happiness they'll have if they create the first good video game movie. Will it be the next?
They'll make it a franchise and profit a lot. But
and, like,
Assassin's Creed is not it.
Yeah, like, the next video game movie I know that's releasing is the Tomb Raider reboot Warner Brothers is doing in 2018 with Lisa Vikander and Walton Goggins. Hopefully that doesn't suck.
What about didn't we have Angry Birds last year? Or are we just going to put that into a separate genre of the phone game movies?
Well, I mean, the only other movie you can compare Angry Birds to is the upcoming Emoji movie, but that's like till August. Which
I'm just saying, technically, like,
how that's gonna do.
Yeah.
So, but that's the top 5. But I cannot forget about. Actually, we can't forget about Moana. Because that's number 6. $7.4 million, which is okay. In its 5th weekend, made over $380 million worldwide, which, when you look at it, the other Disney animated release, Zootopia, it made over $1 billion. So 380, that's maybe a little bit disappointing. It costed like $150 million to make. So it made a profit. It made it over its budget. It did decent at the box office. I don't think
You just
there's
have to
anything
remember.
much to add more.
You have to remember, Zootopia was also kind of in a way, surprise hit. Like, no, I don't think anybody expected Zootopia to make $1 billion and have like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, and it was released at a perfect time too in March.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
and
like,
also for Moana, I'm looking at the international release dates, and it still has a few more regions to go.
Oh, does
Australia, it released today, and then Brazil is January 5th, South Korea January 19th, Hong Kong January 26th, and a few more European regions in February. So it does still have some things to make up for its money. It's going to be a lot of money, but I was expecting it to do a little bit better in terms of worldwide, but still great.
Now, where do you think it's going to end up at the end of its release? I'm projecting 650, or maybe maybe 6. Just maybe 600.
Yeah, I'm gonna say around 520 or so. I don't think it'll get that high.
Yeah,
but it's still it'll still profit, and the merchandising that it'll do is
all the merchandising. You have to take into account like the home video sales, especially with like Disney films.
Mm-hmm.
People will buy Moana for years to come because it's a Disney movie. People will own it at some point in their home video library.
Okay, so the last two films we got to talk about before we leave are two indie movies that are going to be huge Oscar contenders for Best Picture, probably. One is the new Denzel Washington directed and starred movie, Fences. It's his second weekend. It made around $6.68 million off of a $24 million budget. I would say that's good. The word of mouth it has right now, it's only going to increase, especially when it's going to be nominated for, as I said, Best Director, and Denzel Washington getting nominated as Best Actor. Even he's even getting talks to even winning Best Actor. The only guy to challenge him is Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea. So I think, like the $6.68 million is good for a $24 million budget. As I said, the word of mouth is great. It's only going to keep increasing. And the funny thing is this is just my theater. All the Fences screens at my theater, all the screens were sold out. And I heard from another friend that a lot of Fences screenings are sold out. So, yeah, the people have spoken. The word of mouth, again, it's increasing. It's great for Fences.
Well, also,
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Joey.
Oh, okay. So, you also have to realize Denzel was probably like in a weird quiet way, like one of the most dependable box office stars ever. Like when you look at a lot of his movies, they may not like be billion-dollar, tentpole franchises, but when you look at a lot of his, they are solid box office movies. They'll have like a $30 million opening weekend and make enough money, and he'll make a bunch of them, and they'll make decent money, So Fences definitely, Denzel has a following. A weird kind of following in a way, and it's definitely with the award season and all that, it's definitely only going to increase.
Yeah, it's always interesting when the nominations come out. I don't know if that's maybe the first week of January or so. After those nominations come out and the buzz starts building, how these movies like Fences, La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, even like Jackie or Lion, how those numbers, they won't necessarily increase, but the weekend numbers will decrease only slightly or so.
Yeah.
And so that'll be nice to see with these movies throughout January, which is usually the month of nothing really, or month of trash in terms of new releases.
Yeah.
So these movies, it'll be nice to see them profiting, not just the blockbusters, but these more indie
Smaller
movies.
films, yeah.
Okay, so the last one we got to talk about is probably the most impressive indie movie I've seen the box office in a long time. La La Land. So it made $5.7 million. But the difference between Fences and La La Land is Fences was in 2,200 theaters. La La Land was only in 734 theaters. The average per theater for La La Land was 7,800. And Fences was like 2,900. The fact that it is making 7,800 average per theater, this is saying, okay, I don't know why these theaters aren't increasing La La Land. Like, okay, if it's not in 2,000 theaters by next weekend, I will be surprised. I will be shocked. I will not understand why La La Land won't be in 2,000 theaters, because it is making a huge business. It's already made its budget. It's like, okay, it's already made $35 million, because the budget was like $30 million, which that's okay, I should say. But like it's not even showing in 1,000 theaters, and it's already made its budget. Like, this is a movie that we want to see, and if it's not in 2,000 theaters by next week, I'd say the theaters, unless if they are not allowed to do it until at a certain time, what do you got? It's like, it needs to be 2,000 theaters, okay? It just needs to.
It's very interesting. Yesterday on Christmas, I got together with my grandpa at first, and he mentioned how he wanted to see La La Land. Mm-hmm. And then later today, Grandma and Grandpa on the other side said they were interested in seeing it too. They actually brought it up. I didn't even mention it. And so I think it'll be very cool to see this movie attract audiences very old and young as well. Because it's Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. Those are names that are attracting teens and young adults. And it'll be nice to see. I think this movie is going to continue to rise. Theater count will increase in the coming week or two, and I'd be shocked if it didn't do well.
It's also among like the top awards contenders right now. So, and when you're like it's pretty much kind of like the big dog right now. And when you're like that, again, you're right, Iversen, Christian. It's got to go to 2,000 theaters next week, or just when you told me 700 theaters. Or however many it was.
734 theaters.
And
7 per
theater. Like that is. I thought it was at least 1,000, but 700 theaters. That's pretty astonishing. And I think I think it could contribute to a number of things. I mean, aside from like your occasional Disney film every now and again, we don't see too many big budget musical it's not big budget, but I mean, you don't see too many like musicals anymore. Like the last time we really had like a musical on the big screen that I could think of that was live action was probably like Les Mis. That was amazing. I mean, Into the Woods was there too, but you don't see them too often, musicals.
Yeah, I'm actually predicting La La Land to win Best Picture. Mm-hmm. There's so much momentum going for that, and the fact that it's a musical and a great musical, I feel like the Academy voters will consider that. They'll favor that as the most. The only other movie I can see winning Best Picture is possibly Moonlight, because it's probably the most important film of the year. Because it goes through all the issues that we're not talking about, and it does it in a great way. Mm-hmm. So, right. But yeah, it has to be in 2,000 theaters next week. Otherwise, I will lose my mind over that. And actually, the only other movie that I know this year that has actually done this in a similar way was Arrival. Because Arrival was like in like 1,000 theaters, and already had like higher averages than Doctor Strange and Trolls. And it's still making more money than Doctor Strange and Trolls.
Yeah.
Because like Doctor Strange and Trolls, they're not making past $1 million, while Arrival is still making $1 million.
Yep. I'm very happy to see that. I love that movie. And so the fact that and that's also a movie similar to Moana, where it has more international region release dates next year. So that worldwide total will continue to increase in the coming weeks, and that's a great moneymaker and a great film.
Yeah, Arrival has been like $144 million and a $47 million budget, which that's good. That's really good, and it's only going to increase from here. Yeah. But okay, so that concludes our box office squad show. Again, I'm Christian Iversen, joined by Joey DeAngelis and Brian Grodski. Hope you enjoyed the show, and have a great evening. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great 2017. Let's get out of 2016.